Welcome to the F.L.O.W podcast, fearlessly leading our way. This podcast is a space dedicated to spotlighting the unfiltered voices of Black women in their unique leadership journeys. I am your host, Angela V. Harris. I'm an award-winning coach, speaker, author, and champion for Black women. Make sure you like and subscribe to this podcast to stay connected to our conversations. Let's get ready to flow. Hey, fearless leaders, welcome back to another episode of the F.L.O.W podcast. I'm your host, Angela V. Harris, and today's conversation is one you do not want to miss. Whether you're navigating your leadership journey, contemplating a career shift, or wondering how to truly amplify your value in the workplace, this episode is packed with insight, strategy, and real talk. My guest today is the powerhouse, Dr. Karen Hills Pruden, a seasoned HR executive, entrepreneur, author, and advocate for women in leadership. As you can see, she wears many hats. Her story is one of resilience, bold decision-making, and the power of investing in yourself. She takes us behind the scenes of her rise to the C-suite, shares how she negotiated mentorship when the cost seemed out of reach, and breaks down the mindset shifts needed to move from management to leadership. We also tackle some hard truths, why so many professionals hesitate to bet on themselves, how women can strategically position themselves for leadership roles, and the importance of leveraging visibility and influence to advance your career. And if you've ever struggled with self-advocacy in the workplace, Dr. Karen has a game-changing framework for amplifying your value that you need to hear. Stay tuned because Dr. Karen is also sharing an exclusive free resource with our listeners, 20 things you can negotiate outside of salary to increase your total compensation. You don't want to miss this. All right, let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Dr. Karen Hills Pruden. Welcome to the show, Dr. Karen.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, I'm so happy to have you here today. And Dr. Karen, I know you wear many hats. You're an HR executive, an entrepreneur, an author, a speaker, just to name a few. Tell us about your story and how it shaped the leader that you are today.
Oh, wow. So the Cliff Notes version, and then I'll backtrack. The Cliff Notes version is that I was blessed to start out on the front line and make my way up to the C-suite. And I've been in senior leadership for a little over 15 years now. Um, but the in between, the juicy, as one of my coaches would say, is just that I was a person who had worked her way up to middle management and thought I could do better in leadership after having a succession of two very interesting bosses. We'll just say that their tenure was less than a year. And
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, I think I could do leadership. And so deciding that I wanted to move into leadership, not seeing any female leaders around me anywhere. And I had
Mhm.
a big network. And so everybody was kind of lingering where I was, which was middle management. This was about 16 years ago. So LinkedIn was about 5 years old then, about 16 years ago. And so we were all still trying to figure it out based on the other social media. And so I took a copy of my resume, shot it out to two people that I researched on LinkedIn, two women who look like me, African American women who were in senior leadership roles, who had been in those roles for at least a decade. Because I said, if God blessed me to make it to leadership, I want sustainability. So, shot off a copy of my resume along with a little direct message saying, hey, I'm looking for a mentor. I don't have any mentors. I would love if you be my mentor. And then my
Mhm.
number one choice got back to me. She made me wait for about 2 weeks. And she said, sure, I'll be your mentor for $350 an hour.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. back then, and even now, if I lost $350 right now, your girl will be looking for it. But back then, middle manager Karen, I wasn't rolling like that. But what do you do when someone has a blueprint to get to where you want to
Mhm.
go, and they're willing to show you how to get there? And so I buckled down and negotiated for 1 hour a month, not 8 hours, 1 hour, $350 a month, and signed a 1 year contract with her. And for those who are listening, no, she didn't cut me off at 60 minutes. But after working with her for a little over 1 hour a month for 1 year, 4 months later, I was invited to apply for a senior leadership position, and
Wow.
I've been in senior leadership since then. And so, what I learned from that experience, one is that you need to invest in yourself,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
and I am glad that I wasn't one that got despondent when she said $350 an hour. And I was glad that I was one that was creative and said, well, hey, how much for 1 hour? And I didn't let her answer for me. I asked the
Mhm.
question as opposed
Mhm.
to assuming she would say no. Because she helped me identify my unique selling proposition, which a lot of people call it your USP, which is
Mhm.
what makes me different for women with like education and like roles such as myself. And that is that I love data analytics, and I can create a quantifiable number from non-sales departments that can be verified and repeated over and over again, so that you can report out how your productivity ties into your organizational productivity. And so that was my unique gift. I'm a data girl, and I can attribute and create data points. And so that is the kind of the Cliff Notes version of my rise to leadership, and my specialties have helped me sustain myself in leadership. And I guess that whole experience have caused me to create a community of women leaders and mentors called sister leaders for others, so that they don't have to go to that
All
same pain
right.
point that I
Yeah.
went through. And so that's
Yeah.
a little bit about me. That's a whole lot, but a little bit.
Like you said, that's like kind of like the juicy, juicy cliff notes. But I want to just kind of go back to a couple of things that you said. First of all, I'm a huge LinkedIn lover. Like that's my favorite social media platform. I'm extremely active on LinkedIn. And I love your approach because that's what I tell my mentees and also my coaching clients about the direct outreach to people and how you personalize your invite and you
Mhm.
ask for what you wanted. So I just love that you were taking initiative back then to do that because that's something that I still preach today. And
Yes.
personally, I don't even typically respond to people that don't personalize the initial outreach message
Yep.
to me.
Yep.
I'm very particular. I'm very serious about my networking. I don't want to have connections just for the sake of saying I have, 5, 10,000 connections. I really enjoy interacting with the people and, just learning and knowing about them and being able to provide value to them. And I also like the fact that I guess like your mentor was, serious about valuing their time and wanted to make sure that you were serious about, I guess like just serious about the engagement by saying like, okay, it's $350 to work with me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I paid that before the call each month. Before the
Wow.
call, she was paid in full before we got on the call. And so I had no problem with that, because each month she added value to my life and my professional career, just on the ins and outs. No one tell you how to make that conversion from management to leadership.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you are going along in your career, you may even think that they are synonyms for one another, and they are not. As a manager, you are concerned about day to day things. And as a leader, which she helped me to pivot my way of thinking, I am thinking about sustainability and competitiveness 3 to 5 years down the road.
Yeah. 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 And I just love the importance of, investing in yourself. When I look back at the last 10 years of my life and my career, like I realized that I'm not the same person that I am. And it's because, like you, I've been intentional about making that investment in my personal and professional development. And I firmly believe that if we don't see our own value, how can we expect employers to see our value? So I talk about, betting on yourself. So sometimes you have to bet on yourself so other people will bet on you.
Absolutely. And look, I've paid six figures in professional coaching since then. That was 16 years ago.
Mhm.
I've invested a lot of money, but it
Yeah,
helps you get the knowledge. You don't have to put in the same time that your coaches put in, you get that knowledge right up front. And so it kind of gives you the accelerated path to your goals in life when you hire someone who has walked that walk before you.
Yeah. And I know this from, I guess, experience within my own coaching practice. I've seen so many women who are unhappy at work. They know they're underpaid and they know that they're being overlooked for promotions, but they're still hesitant to make that investment in themselves. So I guess like what would you say to someone in that scenario to help them get the courage to make that investment?
Well, I would say, are you sick and tired of being sick and tired?
That they are, but they're still not making the movement. So what would you
Yeah,
say in
but
that
I
situation?
I would say that they are not in enough pain yet.
Mm,
Because you will. I mean, again, I went through two very bad bosses. It was 2 years. Each one of them had a very short tenure, but the mental and emotional impact of those two bosses was well after their short tenure with the organization.
mhm.
And for me to say to myself, look, I know I can do leadership with integrity, with
Yeah, yeah.
honesty. I can still hold people accountable. I know my stuff. I just need to know what is the if is it politics that's involved with getting hired in leadership? Why do I not see women in senior leadership? And really, it is what you don't know. And so, in order to get the information that you don't know, it's not always going to be free. It's not
Mm,
going to always be free. Usually, free gives you the surface information, but if you
yep.
want the meat and potatoes, you usually got to make some type of investment, whether it's time or whether it's money. And for me, I value because I had also paid for my education. My mom, I'm the daughter of a school teacher, so my mom, I went all the way up because my mom was like, "Go get your doctorate, go all the way up." And so, because I value investing in myself, I didn't really have a problem with investing in myself. Now, at that time in my career, $350, an extra $350 was a lot
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I had small children at that point in my life. But I also the thought of this person is going to pour into me, and I will have the advantage as opposed to someone else who did not invest in themselves. I would have the knowledge. I need to figure out how to get at least some of this knowledge, and come to find out some of the knowledge that I got. So for those people who say, that they don't want to or can't afford to, you can't afford not to.
Mm,
You don't have the time. Each day that
mm.
you're going into a job that you're not
Yes,
happy about, each
yes.
day that you're going into a position where you know you can offer more, but you don't even have the authority to bring the idea to the table because of your title, you can't afford not to figure out a way to get the information that you need. And if it comes with the invoice, figure out how you're going to make it happen.
I love that. You can't afford not to.
No, absolutely you can't. Absolutely you can't.
I just want to sit with that for a second. So I'm curious, you made that $350 investment. How much of a return on that have you seen from the course of your career since making that $350 investment? Because I feel like that's the other thing people don't see. It's like, oh, $350 or, $5,000 for this coaching program. But if you get promoted, I feel like that money, that investment is going to be returned to you tenfold.
Absolutely. So I worked with her for 1 year. So 350 times 12, whatever that is. I'm not a mathematician, but 350 times 12. And then I was invited for to apply for the position 4 months after working with her. And so let's say another 350.
Yeah.
So what is the return on the investment after investing at 350 for that period of time? So that is 12 plus 4, that's 16 months. Well, for me it was great because I wasn't one of those people who had applied for a position and never made it to the next level and never found out why. I never even put in the time to apply for the leadership position until I was invited to, which happens to be right after I worked with her. So the first process that I went through, and it was a 4 month process because C-suite positions aren't no, you go in for an interview on Monday and they offer you a
Yeah.
job on Wednesday. No, it was a 4 month process. I went through panel interviews and meeting stakeholders and different things like that. Soon as I went through that 4 month process after working with her, I got my first senior leadership position, which also happened to be my first six-figure position. So
Mm-hmm.
financially, and I think at that time, I think I was making about 75 and I went up to 160. So
Mm-hmm.
financially, plus the perks that were associated with the position in terms of options and different things, but also in terms of not just the money, but it allowed me to impact my life and my children's life
Mm-hmm.
immediately as opposed to later while I figure it out, because our standard of living increased. The people
Yeah.
that I now am sitting in a room with, I'm learning more from them because they're a higher level of individual. Also, I was exposed to my employer paying for certain certifications because of the level of my position. So now I have more certifications behind my name. So the payoff was not just financial, there was some reputational capital that was associated with me being elevated, because now I am navigating in rooms on behalf of my organization with other like minded people. And so it's creating my own network, my
Mm-hmm.
network outside of my position with that organization, because you're only as good as the problem that you solve in your industry, where people are aware of what problem you solve, not who you work for, but what problem you solve. And so because of that, being in those rooms, now I am creating my reputation within my industry outside of my employer, which I leverage when I started my own consulting business.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like it just it kept paying you forward in a sense.
Absolutely. I mean, it keeps, and of course, I've hired a number of different people since then. But I'm a lifetime learner. I
Yeah,
will
so am
I
I.
will never know everything in a room. I will be as quiet as possible, and you'll look over there, and I'll be writing
I
away, note
I'm
taking,
the
and
same
all of
way.
that
I keep a
stuff.
notebook with me all the time.
Yep, and I got a follow-up game that's out of this world. You give me your card, your number that day, by that evening before I go to bed at night. Hey, I'm glad to meet you. Let's stay in
Yep.
contact. Relationships is the new currency of this decade. It is the new currency. Cultivating relationships will get you places faster than another degree, another certification. And so people need to tap into that reputational capital of relationships.
Well, that's a great segue to our next question, because I heard you say that your access to some of the rooms helped you as you went to form some of your other businesses. So I know outside of your day-to-day job, you do have quite a few businesses. So what inspired you to start Pruden Global Business Solutions Consulting and the Sisters Leaders community?
So it's funny. I am a product of a mother who is pro education. My mom's a retired school teacher of 36 years. And so my mom preached all my life, go get your education, go get your highest education. And so hence I went all the way up to my doctorate. But I'm also the product of my dad, who was pro entrepreneur. Don't work for
Wow.
anybody, own your
Wow.
own. You can never be fired if you work from your own. And so coming from those two very different backgrounds, I acquired the best of both worlds. I
Mhm.
have always used my talents in the marketplace from a very young age. If I had a talent that people were willing to pay for, whether it was braiding hair or being the candy lady on the bus or whatever it was, I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit because I always saw my dad, who was pro entrepreneur. And so me creating Pruden Global was more so of, after about 5 years of me giving my talents away, someone was
Mhm.
like, "Look, chick, this is not a hobby. This is a business, even though
Mm.
you're working for someone else." Because I am an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur. I
Yes.
continue to work in
Yes.
leadership for someone else. And so they were like, "This is not a hobby. You can't keep giving this out for free. You need to formalize yourself. You need to determine your pricing structure." And so, because I kept getting that feedback, people were like, "Well, how much you charge?" And it's like, "Oh, I won't charge you anything." And at a certain point, the same people who were asking me how much you charge, and I was saying I won't charge you anything, they were saying, "No, that's unacceptable. You got to figure it
Wow.
out." And so that's
Wow.
how I started my consulting business. Because in the midst of starting my consulting business, I was into real estate investing, because I believe in multiple streams of income. So I was a real estate investor. I was a silent investor, but I've had a real estate license for several decades. But people were like, "No, you cannot continue to give this away for free." And so I had to formalize
Mhm.
myself.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great that the people that were in your network were pushing you to say pushing you to say like, "Hey, you can't continue to give this away for free." Because oftentimes, so many people will just say they'll try to suck everything out of you for free. So it sounds like you definitely have the right community around you that's uplifting you.
Yeah, I was blessed that I had enough people who looked at the sustainability. I think they were looking at, no, this is not a one-time thing. This is something that you can leverage over and over and over again, and you need to structure yourself.
Hmm. And I heard you talk about being an entrepreneur. And for the listeners, entrepreneurship is the practice of acting like an entrepreneur within your current organization. So, Dr. Karen, how have you leveraged your entrepreneur skills in your day to day job?
Well, it's funny because most entrepreneurs used to be an entrepreneur. Most of them used to work for somebody else. And so I'm a leader regardless. So I am a leader working for someone else. I work in higher ed. I'm assistant vice president of project management and finance and administration. Hence, I'm still a numbers geek. So it's still all about numbers and business. But I have the competencies of a leader, and I have had the competencies of a leader for some time. So whether I'm working for myself or someone else, I am all about leading people, leading change using technology and analytics, which are the four major bullets for any particular leader. So I choose to travel both of those lanes because there haven't come a time where they're severely collide. I've had a couple of times where they possibly collide where people have asked me to do various things, and because of my day job, I wasn't able to do it. But for the most part, I've been able to coexist being an
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur and an entrepreneur. And so I haven't felt the need to just pick a lane, which some people feel forced to do. I've
Mm-hmm.
been blessed to have coaches, professional coaches, who say that you don't have to pick a lane, but there will come a time in your life and in your career where you will make the decision of whether or not you want to have one lane versus two lanes. But right now, they both coexist. I'm able to use all of my talents in both lanes. And so I continue to do that, as well as I teach a lot of leaders. And so it works to my advantage to continue to be in the marketplace, actively in the marketplace, because the people that I am working, coaching and working with are actively in the marketplace as well.
Well, that's amazing that you're able to get that fulfillment from both your day to day job and your entrepreneurial activities.
Absolutely, absolutely. Some people are not so blessed.
Yeah, I can relate to that. That was me. That was me. I want to go back to something you said. I love the fact that you said that you always had the competencies of a leader. And I feel like sometimes we as women, we overlook the fact that you don't need a title to be a leader. We are leaders in our everyday lives, just for the simple fact that we're motivating ourselves to get out of bed in the morning. And although we may not have the title within corporate America, we're running nonprofit boards, we're leaders in our churches and other civic organizations that we are members of.
Absolutely. So when I was in middle management, people used to come in my office. People from the C suite, the senior leaders, would come in my office and run stuff past me. That's what they would say. Let me run this past you. So I was the go to person in middle management. And so, although I didn't have the leadership title and I had a management title, but you don't necessarily need a title if you're good at what you do and people value
Yeah.
what it is you do, and you know how to communicate what it is you do, and you are honest when people talk with you, then you can just become a go-to person, a trusted go-to person. And believe me, you can even leverage that. You can stay right where you are. You can be the best go-to person, stay right where you are, and make as much money as possible as they'll give you right where you are. You don't always have to go up to the leadership title. I know a lot of people say, I don't want the headache of leadership.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, be the best that you can be right where you are. But the biggest thing is you have to amplify your value, which is one of my frameworks. And what does that mean? That means that others need to know the value that you add to the workspace. They need to know what your reputation is in terms of what do people say about you when you're not in the room. Well, it's generally what problem that you solve. And so that will be the problem that they come to you with. Again,
Mm-hmm.
being the go-to person. And you got to know how to communicate. You got to know how to tell people not only what they want to know, but what they need to know. And sometimes what they need to know is what they don't want. Sometimes they don't want to hear that. But if you are someone who is trusted and valued, they will appreciate you saying what they don't want to hear, because it's honest. It's an honest conversation, and it may impact how they go and present themselves to someone other. They can pivot and make a change such as that.
Mm-hmm. So I heard you talking about the fact that sometimes women don't know how to amplify their value. That's one of your frameworks. So what are some of the other common challenges women face in these spaces, and how do you help them overcome that?
Absolutely. So visibility creates opportunity. It also allows people to see what it is that you're an expert in. And it doesn't always come with additional money. You know, a lot of times we as women, we hold multiple roles. We are wife, mother, we're also trying to be a professional. And sometimes we want to run home right after work. Well, sometimes there are decisions made after work, doing working lunch, maybe at a working dinner. It could be at someone's wedding who happens to get married at your all of your all of the work people sometimes congregate
Yeah.
because they have that commonality, and then they start talking work business. A lot of decisions that impact our career are made outside of the office, and because we as women sometimes are so multifaceted, we're so focused on trying to hold it all together that we forget about doing a little extra at work to get that visibility, so that if an opportunity does present itself, your name will be in the hat. And so that is one thing, not taking advantage of opportunities outside of the office, because a lot of decisions are made outside of the office. Another barrier that I call a self-imposed barrier is that we think it's bragging when we talk about our wins.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Mm-hmm.
guarantee you, most women have worked with a male counterpart with everything he did all the way back to kindergarten, and you don't consider him to be bragging. And so it is not bragging when you are merely sharing with others the things that you have done in the past, so that they would know the skill set that you have that can help you or them or their business going forward. And so we need to literally amplify, in terms of, say, verbally, the things that we've done. And we need to
Yeah.
have a work profile, not just a resume. A work profile is all of the committees you've worked on, what the objectives were, what the
Yep.
results of those objectives, what are the level of the people that you've worked
Yep.
with on those committees, how much money did you generate, how much money did you make, how much money did you save. Because as a leader, our responsibility is to make money, save money, or achieve organizational goals. Everything we do fall in those three buckets. Either you're achieving organizational goals, either you're saving the organization money, or you're making the organization money. And a lot of times, or time can equate to value. So time is worth money as well. We don't talk about those things. We also don't talk in terms of metrics.
Mm-hmm.
Quantifiable metrics
Yes.
cannot be disputed. We don't keep track of them. We don't use them in our language. And so we like to use soft language. We like to use soft language such as, I'll say reputational language, such as people like me, or my staff like me, or my staff retention rate is 82% over the last 5 years. Not my
Yep.
staff likes me, and so figure out how to speak. And sometimes that is not something you can learn on your own. Sometimes you have to talk to either people in the positions that are higher than you, or people who know what is required to be elevated in the market.
Mhm, mhm. And I love the fact that you spoke about the work profile, because one of the things I tell my clients is to have the brag book. And so when it comes time for our performance appraisals, like, you don't have to scramble to go back. What did I do this year? What projects did I work on? What type of praise did I get? Like, how much impact did I make? So if you have this brag book and you
Yep.
update it, say, like, weekly, monthly, when it comes time to write that review, you have all your data right there to pull from. Because
Yep,
we forget,
absolutely.
life
Because we
happens fast
forget.
and we forget.
Yeah, and you know what? It's not going to be to anybody's advantage. If you don't remember, they're not going to remember for you unless their performance is tied to your performance.
Right, right.
So if their performance is tied to your performance, but that don't mean that they may give you credit for your performance. They may just restate what your performance is on whatever document self-assessment that they may have for their performance. But no, we have to keep track of our wins because we forget. We move on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm. And I want to go back to something else you said. You talked about how a lot of decisions are made outside of the office. So what advice would you have for women who may be like the first woman or like the only woman in like a male dominated environment to, get comfortable to even attend some of those out of work events if they're only going to be the first and the only in the room?
To me, the fact that you are the only, you're gonna stand out. You're gonna stand out more. So you're the only woman on the team. Everybody likes to win now, and I'm not downplaying any hardships that women in male dominated environments have went through. But what I will tell you is that everybody likes to win. So you have to bring your A game. So you have to be the best at what you do. You have to be the best. So you can't just be a woman, unfortunately, and just be marginal like the guys. It could be 100 guys on a team, and now you're 101 employee, and you're the only woman, and you're marginal. What you want to do is be the woman and stand out, which again needs to be, you need to bring your A game so that when you are communicating with them, not only are you communicating at a higher level because you're extraordinary and they're ordinary, let's say it like that, at a
Ah,
higher level, but you add value to the conversation when you step on scene. And so to me, it's all the more reason to stand out when you are the only and the first. And many times I've been the only woman, I've been the only person of color and the only woman. So they checked off 2 blocks. And now that I'm over 40, I'm the only woman. I'm the only, sometimes it's the young kids that are there, and I'm the oldest too. But when I walk in the door, I add value to the conversation, and they look forward to what I have to say because I have a reputation of adding value to the conversation. And
mm-hmm.
sometimes adding value is not taking over the conversation. It is listening to everybody else and filling in the gaps of what they don't consider. So sometimes I'm the last person to talk. Most times I am the last person to talk. Very rarely do people let me leave a meeting and not say anything because they invited me to the meeting because they figured I had something of value to add. And so, because I have a reputation of being one of the last people to speak, before they adjourn that meeting, they'll say, well, Karen or Dr. Pruden, do you have anything you want to add? And then what do? I take everything that I've heard the whole time and said nothing and figure out what the gaps that they haven't considered and put those gaps or their problems on the table to say, I hear this was said and that was said. Have we considered A, B, C, D? Because if you are not saying anything in a meeting, then you need to be taking in everything that is being said and figuring out what how is this going to help you achieve your goal, or how is it going to be a barrier to what it is that you're talking about. And by the time the question gets around to you about what your thoughts are, then all you need to lay on the table is what someone else has not said or considered.
Dr. Karen, you were dropping so many gems. Like, I love what you said. Women are extraordinary, men are ordinary.
Yep, that's what I said.
Yes. And your strategy just to highlight the gaps in the conversation that folks may not have addressed.
Yeah, one of my things that kind of make my blood boil when someone gets the opportunity to talk and they repeat something that has already been said.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
Yep.
you're just wasting my time. You're just talking for the sake of talking. But if you have the opportunity to add something that we didn't consider, then come on, bring it, say it. But don't
Yeah.
repeat something that's been said 15 different ways in this room, because now that's the reason why people hate meetings.
Yes. Yes. Well, Dr. Karen, I know you've authored over 30 books and received countless accolades. How do you stay motivated and balanced while managing your career?
I'm a busybody. I love everything that I do. And actually, my husband just said to me yesterday, I think he was taking a dig at me. He was like, "You don't have an off switch." And I was like, "Because I like everything. I like everything that I do." And I thought about it after he said that, and I said, what a wonderful place it is to be in my life where I enjoy everything that I do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And if
You
I'm pretty sure with that, it doesn't feel like work to you because you enjoy it so much.
Correct, which was his issue, because he feels like I'm working around the clock, which I don't. I don't work around the clock. Don't believe the rumors you hear. But I do work a lot, because I do have various businesses and I do work for someone else. But I don't mind putting in the extra hours sometime at night or doing an interview or something, if it is in my lane of brilliance, because I feel like if someone hears me talk, then maybe I can help elevate the next woman or the next leader.
Mm,
You can't take all your talents to the grave. I
no,
think you do
no.
yourself an injustice. And for me, it is about influence and impact. I want to use my influence to impact others by sharing everything that I know. I'm not one that hoards information because I'm a lifetime learner. You will never know everything that I know because I'm always still learning. And so I'm not one that feels like I can't share stuff with people. And so I do a lot of interviews. I mean, I do about 5, 6 podcast interviews a week. I do association, I speak in conferences, I global speak. I'm a coach for certain organizations, chamber of commerce. My goal is I would like to see more women leaders. But if it can't be a woman leader, can we just have a competent leader who has emotional intelligence,
Yes.
who has technical expertise and who is
Yes.
willing to share? So I'll take that in a man or a woman. If it can't be a woman, then I'll take that in a man, but it needs to be emotionally intelligent,
Yes.
and they need to have the technical competence and be willing to share.
Mm-mm-mm. Yes. Yes. All of that. All of that. Well, Dr. Karen, with so many achievements, what do you hope your lasting impacts on the leadership landscape will be?
Wow. So if God took me away from here tomorrow, and I would hope to that day where people are talking about me, that they will talk about how much I shared, how much I shared and how it changed and impact their life. I don't live and get up every day to leave a legacy, but I do know that we all leave some type of legacy.
Yeah.
And I just want my legacy to be one where I helped others and I didn't hoard my knowledge and hoard my information, that I shared as much as I could share, that I was asked to share,
Yeah.
so that others can elevate themselves quicker, so that they can get their goals quicker and so they can sustain themselves. Because I believe that women aren't in senior leadership is still a disparate impact, not because of a lack of talent. I think it's a lack of knowledge of what is needed. It is plenty of women out here who have the skills, but if they go into the leadership process talking about what they did last week, now they're behind the 8 ball because we're
Mm.
talking about what we're doing 3 years down the road. Leadership and management are not synonyms. And so, first, we need to educate each other on the difference between management and leadership. And then we need to tell people what leadership really is, because it is more than 6 figures and your parking space and a nice office. Oh, I'm usually in the office when my staff is at home. A lot of
Mm.
times I send my staff home and I'm there working so that they can go home. And so it's a lot of times, it's a lot of sacrifice. You're the most vulnerable the higher up you go, and you're the most vulnerable because your success depends on everybody up under you.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you have to look at the mental health of everybody up under you. You need to make sure they have the resources they need. And resources, not just money. Resources is
Right.
time. Resources is the ability to do their job with different things, the computer. Sometimes it could even be a particular chair if they're sitting down for long periods of time. But your employees need the resources they need so that they can produce and be happy when they
Yeah.
produce. They don't have to be ecstatic, but can we just be happy? Can they be happy? Can we just see a smile when we walk in the hallway and see our employees? Because
Mm.
that makes we spend a lot of time at work.
We do. We do.
And it shows on your employee's face when you don't have an environment where people are laughing and giggling and having fun. It may not be the healthiest of an environment, because even the hardest workers periodically laugh, joke, and have fun at work.
And it
And that's
goes back to what you said about needing emotionally intelligent leaders. Like an emotionally intelligent leader will look for those things
yes,
and take
absolutely.
action when they don't see those things existing.
Start ask questions. My employees can walk in and one of them can walk past me and my spirit will say something's going on, something's going on. And so by the time they get to their office, I'm there. Hey, where's that smile? Or
Mm,
I didn't hear you joke today, or what's going on? You want to talk? And it's up to them. They may not want to talk, but I want them to know I recognize that you aren't who you generally show up as
yeah,
every
yeah.
day, and you are seen. You
Yeah, I was
know,
gonna say you see them. Yeah, you
yep,
see them.
yep,
And
yep.
a
I
lot
don't
of
force
managers
them to
or leaders
talk.
don't see their people or care
Yeah,
to see people.
absolutely. So I don't force them to talk, but they'll say, "Oh, had a bad night, not really ready to talk about it." No problem. I just want to let you know that I noticed that you
Wow.
aren't who you normally are.
Wow. That's amazing. I want to switch gears a little bit and move into a lightning round. And this is how the listeners get to know a little bit more about you on a rapid fire question
Okay,
style.
let's do
So,
it.
all right, are you ready?
Yes, yes.
All right, first question. One thing I try to do every day is
Wow. One thing, eat popcorn. Don't judge
what
me.
flavor? What's your
Don't
favorite
judge.
flavor?
Sweet and sour kettle corn.
Okay, okay. Next question. I feel most alive when
When I'm talking about leadership, believe it or not, I really feel alive just if I, especially to someone who aspires to be a leader. I just love it because their eyes, they're like hooked into you, and they're gonna take what you say and sit back and let it marinate and possibly use the information.
you're lighting up right now throughout this whole
Yeah, just
conversation.
yeah, I love talking to aspiring people.
Okay. A professional experience that shaped who I am today was
Learning how to not write long emails on my cell phone. I got called into task for misspelled words, and that was interesting because that boss said that I needed a spelling class, and here I was in the C-suite. She talking about I need a spelling class. I was like, the devil is a lie. Let me figure out what's going on. So I figured out that I am not at my best writing long emails on my small screen on my cell phone. So now I don't do any more than 2 to 3 sentences on
okay.
my cell phone, and I wait until I get to my laptop. But that was a professional lesson that I had to learn. I had to do some self assessment as to what is she talking about, misspelled
Uh-huh.
words. She showed me the emails, they were definitely misspelled. And so I thought about what I was doing
Okay.
and I was doing it on my cell phone. So you can't do everything on your cell phone, contrary to popular beliefs. At least I can't. I
Mhm.
can't.
Mhm. Well, that's great self-awareness on your part.
Yes, absolutely. Because, girl, she told me I need a spelling class. I was like, what?
Okay, my go-to mantra for tough times is
No excuses, make it happen.
love it, love it. When I need a quick energy boost,
Eat. I
what's your
eat.
favorite food to eat?
Oh, wow. Popcorn.
The kettle corn.
Yes.
The boldest risk I've ever taken was
Oh, I'm in the midst of it right now. I just hired a six-figure coach. It's
wow,
like,
great.
oh my God. Each month, I'm like, oh my God, when it's time for that payment. So,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, but I'm already seeing the impact of the coach. But yeah, that's the largest amount. So it's a long way from the 350 an hour.
Wow, but you've come a long way since that
I
350 an
have. I
hour.
yes, I have.
Last question. To me, success means
Influence and impact.
okay.
Yeah, being able to influence others and have an impact on others.
Mhm. Well, Dr. Karen, before we wrap up, I have one last question I like to ask all my guests, and I know you're a busybody, as you say. So, what do you like to do when you aren't fearlessly leading?
So I am a law junkie. So I like looking at Law and Order.
Uh-huh.
And depending on how long depending on where people met me, I actually went to law school. I decided I didn't
Oh,
want to be a lawyer in law school, and I ended up getting my doctorate in something else because I didn't. But I actually made it all the way to law school and decided, nope, don't want to do this. But I love law. So I am a law and order junkie. All of the
wow.
law and orders. You can find a
Wow.
law and order any time of the day, every day on cable. And I am there sitting there looking at law and order.
Wow. You have so many layers to you, Dr. Karen.
I hope that's a good thing.
So good. That just means you have a wealth of knowledge to bring to everyone. It's amazing.
Thank you. You're too kind.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. How can the listeners stay connected with you and the work that you're doing?
So I play on LinkedIn. If you want to find me, I put everything on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is my sandbox, is how I say it. I also have a website under my name,
Okay.
drkarenhillspruden.com. I also want to offer your listeners a free downloadable. I have the QR code for those who are visually able to see me. That's right above me, but it'll also be in the podcast notes. A link of 20 items that you can ask for in addition to salary to increase your total compensation, because with my clients we think total compensation, not just salary, and I've had some clients who've doubled and tripled their total
Wow.
compensation because of the additional things outside of salary that they ask for. And so let's think total compensation for those
Yeah.
that are entrepreneurs and working for others.
Wow. Well, thank you for that generous gift. I will make sure they get the link to download that.
Absolutely, absolutely, and thank you for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thanks for tuning in today. Until next time, take care. Hey, fearless leaders. We've been on this journey for over a year, and I want to take a moment to thank you for your support. If you love what you're hearing on the F.L.O.W podcast, please consider supporting us on Buy Me a Coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Angela V. Harris. Every little bit helps us keep these conversations going. Thank you for being a part of the F.L.O.W family. Thank you for listening to the F.L.O.W podcast. As we wrap up today's episode, always remember your unique path, your voice, and your leadership matter. If you loved what you heard, subscribe now to stay updated on our latest episodes. Take a moment to leave a review and share this episode with someone who can benefit from these conversations. You can stay connected with me on Instagram at the F.L.O.W Podcast with Angela, or visit me on the web at angelavharris.com. Until next time, take care, stay inspired, and keep fearlessly leading in your own way.